All right, and we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review, which is probably more shots than the Lakers hit in the third quarter. But if you can, go ahead and do that. Please do so. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, of course, the great folks at Lakerholics.com. Please be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com, and also the wonderful folks at the Hoopheads Podcast Network, which has an outstanding array of basketball podcasts just waiting for you. And if you go ahead and you can support any of these causes, it is sincerely appreciated. Well, the Lakers coming off a very gritty week, as Jamie himself said earlier this week in regards to the 2 overtime wins, looking like it was going to be something very good for the Lakers heading into halftime with a 5-point lead over the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not exactly the best way they were going about through things, but again, still 5-point lead. Seeing everything was okay so far. Shooting was all right. Defense was not too bad heading into halftime. And then the third quarter happened. And I'll just leave it with this. It is one of the most embarrassing, incredibly bad, and horrible third quarters I have ever seen in my entire life from the Lakers. Just truly a horrid display as they got outscored by the 3-7, now 4-7 Minnesota Timberwolves, 40-12. In a very just embarrassing third quarter, and it led to basically up to a 30-32. I lost count of 34. I think they were up at one time by 34, the Timberwolves were, and the Timberwolves just basically put into cruise control in the fourth quarter as they beat the Lakers and destroyed them in the second half, 107-83. And here today to talk about the game, I mean, we could always talk about the first half. The first half was very competitive. The Lakers looked pretty good, especially on the defensive end. Shooting was a little suspect, but then again, the bottom fell out on the second half. But here today to talk about the entire game is a good man indeed. You got to catch his latest article, which is available right now at Lakerholics.com. Please be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com, where you will see his latest article on why breaking up the superstar Big Three could be a smart move for the Lakers. Boy, I would love to say so much about that. It is LakerTom, and LakerTom, great to have you back. Thank you for your patience this week and allowing Joe Sorrell to step in because, unfortunately, timing, we had to have him come in on his only day for Wednesday, so I appreciate you allowing him to step in. But unfortunately, you had to come in on the day where the Lakers just absolutely sucked in the third quarter. You can't. Yeah, you can't. You just can't. Nobody got injured. It was, the Lakers.
We're Laker fans, so what? This is the thing. You can't separate out only watching the wins and not watching the losses.
Oh, we're here for all of them.
And frankly, one of the reasons why we appreciate the wins so much is because of the agony we go through in the losses.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
We bookended 2 overtime wins with a pair of totally disastrous,
and that's one thing I want to ask you.
Horrible games.
Worse? Which is worse? The full game effort that we saw or lack thereof on Saturday,
or the third quarter tonight,
or this one? Which one's worse, in your opinion? I think it's this one because they had a chance to win and they were leading at halftime.
No, I would probably say the other game because that was the whole game against the Trailblazers. Here we really held our own for 3 quarters, but we lost 40-12 in the third quarter. That's a 28-point turnaround, I mean, that was the game. That was a game right there in the third quarter. And Karl Anthony Towns was unconscious. I mean, a couple of the shots that he put in there. It's funny because I thought in the start of the game, the first half, for example, I thought that Anthony Davis really did a great job defensively on him. And he really held him down, And it was kind of funny. It was it was almost that whole incident where I'm not sure what you call that play that Anthony made to try to break free at the end there from or that Carl Anthony Towns tried to pull there, but it was definitely looked like a shot to the groin in order to, just get even after getting bumped on the drive, but ever since that point, to Cat's credit, he was the better player. I mean, we know the guy's is an uber talented guy, and he hasn't been able to, pull his team through. And they lost 6 in a row for Guy. It's not like anybody would expect this to come out of left field the way that it did. But you see more and more of it with everybody, in the league, that teams just seem to, it seems to be early in the season, and maybe it's because we've gone through 2 COVID seasons that have been so wacky and different that we don't remember that this was, like 4 or 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, or 7 years ago. How different it is for the first few games of the season, and we're still really, we're now 7-6, so 13 games into the season. And we're missing a lot of players, I mean, I've been waiting for AD to start at 5 for how long?
You got your wish tonight.
I got my wish, but I looked at that lineup and I said, geez, we're really going to play small ball, because you got 6'4" power forward in a small ball with Anthony Davis, who doesn't really like to play the 5, and Ellington, I mean, it was just a crazy starting lineup. And it was almost like what Frank was trying to do is say, you guys been complaining about DeAndre Jordan so much, so take this. I'm gonna put a team out there without a second center, and we'll see how we do. I almost felt Frank was doing that. Sort of a screw you move. Let's see what can happen out here. Most likely, he was probably just experimenting with the situation, but I mean, it's almost like sometimes the guy is really actually working to try to jinx any opportunity for Anthony Davis to play the 5. It's weird, What can I do? Let's see. Why not I put Russ and Rondo out there with him at the same time, But it is just one game. Even if you have a stinker like this late in the season or in the middle of the season, as opposed to the 13th game of the season, it's one of those. It's just one of those games where you just got to flush it and move on, because there was a point where that game was hopeless, where they could not miss a 3, and I mean, they were obviously willing to, every team. I mean, somebody posted a post on Twitter that said something like that they were just surprised finally that teams it was one of the celebrity people that are always reporting on the Lakers. They were surprised that teams were always trying to give the Lakers their best shot. It's like, where have you been the rest of your whole life? I mean, that's the typical situation. Every team comes out. This is their Super Bowl for a certain. They get to come to Staples Center and play under the bright lights, and they know the game's going to be televised. It's going to get national coverage and so forth. And so they have their opportunity. And surprisingly, it's just amazing. I mean, we're 7-6, and 4 of the losses, to be honest, should have been wins. It's 2 games that we just totally collapsed completely. And both of those games were without LeBron, and then the 2 overtime wins with LeBron. It's probably, to be honest, probably a fair reading of how much progress we've made and how much progress we still have to make in the challenge of learning to win when LeBron's not on the lineup. We obviously took a step back today after a couple of good steps forward, maybe 2 steps back, considering how badly we got our butts whipped. But, well, on to the next game. We've got back-to-back games, I think, Sunday and Monday, right?
That's correct. You have a game Sunday at the Staples Center with San Antonio. But, when you look at the box score and you see 22 points, 3 block shots, 3 steals, 8 rebounds, 7 of 13, 8 of 10 from the free throw line from Anthony Davis, you think to yourself, well, that's a really good game. That's not too bad. That's not too shabby for him. But it seems to be consistent now where he is being outplayed by Cat, as we saw in that amazing third quarter from him. The previous game where Butler, he got out of the game with an injury, and Bam Adebayo took over and completely outplayed Anthony Davis in that second half. And we're seeing that a little bit more often. And AD is supposed to be that individual player, one of the greatest 75, one of those great individuals who's supposed to bring so many talents. And you see it in the box score that he's not doing that bad. He's actually having a pretty decent season right now. 24 points.
No, he's in the top 10 in numerous categories. And
I just don't feel that he's making the impact in the game that I think he needs to be making.
I think it's just a case that we just didn't have enough with him. I mean, I listened to Pete Zayas and Darius Soriano's podcast the other day, and they were talking about how great the Lakers shooting was. And the theme of the podcast was that, well, we got 3 guys that if you can pretty well count that one of these 3 guys is going to go off for us and have a good game. Those 3 guys were obviously Carmelo Anthony, who's shown that he can do it, and then Malik Monk, who's come along really well and shown he could do it. But they sort of elevated Wayne Ellington into that spot based upon his last couple of games, thinking that we've got 3 guys who let's say frankly are superior shooters to anybody we had last year. Okay, well tonight,
Carmelo
Ellington got 6 points. Carmelo got 3 points and was 1 for 12 and 1 for 8 from 3. And then Malik Monk got 7 points. None of them even hit double digits.
I can see with Melo and Ellington.
So next man, it was next man down, not next man up.
Well, again, with those two, I think age still has to come into factor. Ellington's coming off the injury and he's still rounding into shape. With Carmelo, I think it's the fact that you played him in consecutive overtime games, and the fact, this is where you see where the 37. We talked about it before when we were joking about it before.
Well, he's not a 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6 guy. We'd love for him to be that way,
but it's not at 37.
Yeah, you can't. So he was like a 2 out of 3 guy. So I mean, hey, we'll take him as a 2 out of 3 guy.
But the defense is also
basically nobody else stepped up. Nobody else stepped up to take the place that Melo had taken. And to be honest, the team got their butts kicked and got dispirited, and quit.
And their defensively,
they quit,
the effort wasn't there. Similar to what we saw in Portland. But
it was it's not that the effort wasn't there. It was sort of like when you get knocked out.
Well, the energy, the body language.
Behind by 30, and at that point you're behind by 30, and there's not enough time to come back. Is 1 quarter to come back. It was pretty well written off.
Well, again, they were ahead at the half and going in. It's not just what we're seeing with.
Well, we've had horrible stats. We've had horrible stats at the start of the third quarter all season long.
Again, it's a situation where at the start of the third quarter, we see a lot of teams in the NBA do this, where they give up that lead, they get outscored 6 or 8 points in a row. Usually, the coach will have to take a quick timeout, and that'll get the game back into gear where it becomes.
Frank took a timeout minute of 30 into it, but we'd already given up 8 points.
It still didn't work.
We were behind by 3. We were ahead by 5 going into starting the second half.
Well, defensively, the Lakers in that second half were atrocious, and the way they were going ahead and being able to not get on the ball, not stay on the ball, and allowing so much to happen offensively for the Minnesota Timberwolves was the most disappointing part for me. I mean, after starting to see a step forward,
the Timberwolves were due, basically, man. When you go 0 for 6, and you got guys like Edwards and guys like Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, they've got some great players on that team. They're young, but they're an NBA team, man. They beat us. They beat us good,
But you say that, and we could also say the same thing about Portland. They were due last week, and then Oklahoma City due
Why do you think
twice.
that? Do you think that the next game changes your whole attitude toward the Lakers for the season? It's a disappointing loss, but it doesn't change anything. I mean, I still think the Lakers' big problem right now is they have too many injured players out, and LeBron James is missing.
I even think what they have is still problematic because, again, on the defensive end, it's still a mess, and we're seeing the effects
but it's
of that.
improving. It's improving. I mean, they gave up 40 points in that quarter, but all of the other quarters were under 25, under 23 points. So that's not bad defense. It's and what you have to be. Every team goes through these stretches where they aren't willing themselves to. It's almost like they understand that this is an 82 game schedule, man, and hey, man, we're on game 13, and God, what did we do? We came out totally flat. I mean, it's like that whole thing of why if you're a professional athlete and that being an elite competitor has been one of the traits that has gotten you into the league and put you into position financially to have a secure for your family and so forth. And how can you come out flat in a game? And the reason is because there are 82 of those things every year, If there were only 8 games a year, everybody would come out primed and ready to go probably in every game. Probably not. There'll probably be one game when they won't still, But with 82 games, and when you're a team like the Lakers, even when you should be the underdog in a sense because you're so beat up and you've got so many missing key players, but you come out flat, and they just did it after a big article, several articles that were coming out saying, wow, the Portland series really turned things around for the Lakers, and then they turned around and dropped Portland 2.0.
They laid half an egg. You can't say they laid a full egg because, again, they were leading at halftime. But you can say they laid pretty much an egg in the second. At least
it doesn't matter how you mix the omelet at the end if it's not edible, and it's you got to still throw it down into the trash and put the lid. So there's not much you can say about this game. I mean, I kind of, what was behind Frank's mind for changing the lineup like he did? Maybe he thought the matchup, would be better with 80 at the 5 on Cat, because Dwight's gonna have trouble. Cat can go to the rim, or maybe it was that he really felt just like the Laker Film Room podcast guys felt that Ellington is really starting to show, that professional shooter quality that the Lakers have been missing. And so that he could be the second guy, or in this case, maybe the third guy with Malik Monk that gives the Lakers some elite shooters that they haven't had in the past. Monk's more of a scorer than a shooter, but definitely Ellington is, quote, supposedly the professional 3-point shooter, the guy who can reposition himself real well. I haven't seen that, but I haven't seen him do the type of stuff I keep reading that he does, repositioning himself like Steph Curry and so forth. But so that's my only questions about really what happened tonight, and is what was the whole modus operandi for why Frank made some of those decisions, why not to play DeAndre? Was it almost like he was taunting Laker fans on Twitter, about all of their disdain for DeAndre Jordan's value as a starter? And it's funny because the numbers are not terrible with DeAndre overall. And in fact, for the first quarter, they're actually fairly good. It's the third quarter with DeAndre that we've been getting killed. And now we find out that, well, that third quarter malaise is not limited just to DeAndre. So
now DeAndre Jordan would not have changed anything in that second half.
No, I think the Lakers came out for whatever reason, and it could be a serious reason, but the chances are probably 100 to 1 that it's just team coming out flat just because it's, for whatever reasons. Maybe individual guys had problems that day with their families, and maybe other guys maybe they don't like that Wilson ball as well as they like that Spalding ball.
Maybe it's playing 2 overtime games back to back and having the oldest team in the league.
Could be something like that too, or the fact that we're missing 6 guys, and
and still the oldest team in the league and played 2 straight overtime games.
Right, that's true, and the team that knows that they're not going to be at their best right now, and they're just sort of like, let's get healthy. Let's get out there, let's not kill ourselves, but let's they didn't, let me put it this way. They didn't approach it like a playoff game. I mean, man, you don't come out totally flat like that in the third quarter of a playoff game. Actually, sometimes the Lakers have done that. And other teams
yes, they have.
It's
I don't want to remind you.
It's terrible human nature that sometimes you get cocky, but but you think about it when you think about the personal biodynamics of 5 players or 7 or 8 players that are going to be the key in every game, and which guys got out of bed the right way, and the ones that got out of bed on the wrong side of the bed, and you put those together, and man, sometimes the good team comes out and is not ready to play, and the team that is this inferior team comes out, and for whatever reason they're ready to go that day. Cat's feeling good, somebody else's who's, let's say, been dinged up feeling healthy, and they come out and they have a game, and what's the common denominator to those types of situations is that everybody loves to beat the Lakers. Everybody gets up for the Lakers. And the problem is that if you got every team coming in getting up for you and you don't get up, then you end up losing by 30.
Well, it could be an additionally bad day for you with the way UCLA is playing right now.
Oh, Gerald, I've got the game recorded, man.
Okay. Oh. I'll just say, get ready to bite your nails. How about that?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, fair enough indeed. But before we head on out, I didn't know you didn't have it. You didn't tell me.
Well, when I'm watching the Laker game for the podcast, what do you think? I'm not going to be recording the UCLA game.
TVs. You have 2 TVs. That's all. I figure you're LakerTom. You have UCLA on one end. You have LakerTom. But okay, it's not over, and it is nail biting time. I'll give you that. How about that? It's not over.
Don't say anything more. I don't even want to look at this expression on your face. It's just
okay. All right.
What a spoiler! Oh, Gerald.
I didn't know.
Gerald.
I didn't know. But anyways, before we head on out, you've got a great article that you did put out there that you can spoil, and that is on Lakerholics.com, where you've done a little bit of a 180, where you're now asking and just throwing it out there, what if the Lakers did now break up the Big Three?
Yeah, I had 2 different scenarios there. One of the problems is that if the Lakers play the Big Three at the start of each game, each half, and the end of each half, they don't have enough minutes left for the superstars to have 2 superstars on the floor all the time. And one of those times when they'd have 2 superstars on the floor, or it would be great to have 2 superstars on the floor, is because it's those middle minutes of the game are when the reserves play, the other team's reserves play, and your reserves play. And so the question is it better to try to shoehorn Russell Westbrook into a lineup with 2 other superstars that's probably going to not have enough defenders and enough shooters just because they've got 3 superstars in the lineup and you only got 5 spots? Is that smarter, or is it smarter maybe just to work the 2-man combinations? Because if you get 2-man combinations that you're dealing with 2 superstars, you got 3 other players that you can add in there, and that makes it easier for coaches like Vogel to put together the lineups. It's definitely much more difficult to build a balanced offensive and defensive winning lineup that has enough shooting for spacing and protect and defensive perimeter defense when you have just 2 superstars in the mix rather than 3, because you got that extra spot that you can do things with. So that's the first scenario. Basically says that if you If you just start in the game and end the game with the three superstars, and then everything in between, including all of the second and third quarters, you're playing two superstars on the court all the time, you can do that, and you've got enough superstars to do that. And then that's actually the full version of the option. Then there's the light version, which is basically saying that, well, let's not play Russell Westbrook at the start of or the end of games. Let's just play him in the middle of the games when we have the two superstars on the court. And if you do that, you're only playing 24 minutes of Russ, so you cut down Russ's time and you cut down on the turnovers, and you hopefully, this is an off ramp, if you will, if the Russell Westbrook integration with LeBron and AD doesn't work as well as I think and hope it will work. But it's an interesting thing to look at, because there is an argument, I think a very strong argument to be made, that having two superstars on the court for all 48 minutes of the game may be, especially for this team, an easier fit and a better way to be successful than trying to maximize the minutes that you have all three superstars out there in the court, just because we're losing the game in the minutes when LeBron is not in there, which are those minutes in the middle of the game, when it'd be good to have two superstars on the court all the time so that we wouldn't lose those minutes. So it's just an example of looking at that situation and thinking about it. And it would obviously have helped if we'd had a great game tonight. And with just two superstars, we showed that we were learning how to win. But sometimes you take a step back before you take those steps forward.
And I will say, maybe it is now worth your time to watch the game. I'll say, as far as that on the recording. So I'll say it's
no more. Gerald, please don't.
I'll spoil it for you a little bit more. It is now it's a good game. It's worth your time. How about I put it at that?
Oh, so you want me to listen to a 2-hour game here at 10:30 at night?
Well, you could just fast forward it. There you go, to the good parts. There you go.
I hate fast forwarding games. I don't like that at all.
Okay, well, get ready to bite your nails. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But again, you could go ahead and check out his latest article today. It is, again, why breaking up the superstar big three could be a smart move for the Lakers. You forgot to add the. But anyways, it is available at LakerTom.
It's headlines. Headlines have to fit those two lines.
All right. So, okay, it's like Twitter. Okay, there you go. You can take out that D then.
Yep.
But it is LakerTom, at LakerTom on Twitter, and also as well, we're at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter if you have any questions for us. It is once again the Lakers in a disappointing second half, especially that third quarter where they got killed 40-12. And they got pummeled by the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's probably
the worst quarter of the year, I'd say for sure already.
It's the worst quarter I've seen in several years. That's all I'll say. And that's 107-83.
It might be the worst quarter. It might be the worst quarter ever. 12,
possibly
40. I can't remember anybody else scoring 40, honestly, and I sure don't remember us scoring only 12.
Well, I mean, there's probably been that type of differential before.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's like the little of your worst quarter offensively and defensively all together in one.
That's a hard deal. That's a hard thing to say. This was really
Gerald.
bad.
It's okay. Gerald, it's okay. You don't have,
It's, as you would say, it's just one game. It's just one quarter. How about that?
We can still be champions tomorrow morning. Okay.
Well, the Lakers will come back, hopefully strong. They'll take it to heart like they did against Portland. Hopefully they'll take it, to heart and try to finish out this homestand, which I thought was going to go 4-0, but LakerTom could be right. They could go 3-1. Although I got the Miami game right, and he did. So we'll leave it at that. But
I had switched over from 3-1 to 4-0 after we upset the Heat.
Oh, anyways,
that was the loss that I had us losing to the Heat.
All right. Well, it is LakerTom. It is Gerald Glassford here. I want to thank you so much for watching and listening. It is the Lakers Fast Break. Please, if you have any questions for us, at LakerTom on Twitter, at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. Also, check out the great 5 Things article that Jamie Sweet has posted and all the great comments today at Lakerholics.com. But once again, the Lakers did get outclassed in the second half, in that third quarter especially, 107-83. But we will be back, hopefully, with much better thoughts and opinions, and hopefully a win for the Lakers on Sunday as they take on the San Antonio Spurs. And we'll be back to go ahead and do the post-game wrap-up for that game right here on Sunday night. So check it out, or Monday morning, wherever you get your podcasts, right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.